Corona beer virus searches are now spiking on Google. As news of the coronavirus outbreak continues to travel across the world, people are worried about what could happen. Naturally, there have been many articles, live blogs, news bulletins, etc. The lethal strain of coronavirus is suspected to have been originated from seafood or bat soup in Wuhan, China. Some people worried there's another cause for this, and that's why the trends on Google now are showing searches for coronavirus beer. Virus corona beer. Some people think that it might happen from beer. It doesn't.
Just so you know, too, if you get sick after Corona beer, that's a hangover. That's not that's not a virus.
Right.
And we should say it's novel Corona, right? So the coronavirus is around all the time. You probably have had that. It's about 30% of all upper respiratory infections come from this.
And corona just means a crown. It's shaped, when you look under a microscope, it looks like a crown.
That's all it means.
So,
but
Budweiser would like you to remember that there's a crown on Corona beer as well, so you don't know.
Weird advice from them.
Yes, I'm, Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, so let's just go through some of this because it looks like it is spreading rapidly, and we don't know if China is telling us the truth or not. And we're going to go over some of this stuff tonight on television, but we're going to talk to an actual what do you call him? Epidemiologist. We've got a guy who this is his life to study these things. He's going to give us all the real information on this. But it looks like this has been going on maybe a little while longer than what China has said, because there were a lot of death certificates of unknown cause.
Yeah, a lot of that, and a lot of them not, like, for example, there's a story of the mayor of the city where all this is going on, going to not telling people about it because he had to get approval from the central government. And it's like a scene out of Chernobyl. These communist governments are still doing the same things. If you watch that HBO miniseries, that was the whole thing. They wouldn't react. They wouldn't tell people. They hid the thing and made it much worse for a while. Seems like the same thing's going on here.
All right. So let's talk about the worst virus that has ever happened in modern history. We know it as the Spanish flu, or the flu pandemic of 1918. Now, there's something technically called the R-naught, N-O-U-G-H-T, R-naught. And all viruses have an R-naught factor to them. And what it is how easily is this spread from one person to another? For instance, it's a 0 to 20 scale, and smallpox is about 16 to 18. So
super high.
Super high. So it means one person will infect 16 to 18 people. Okay, that's super, super high. The R-naught of the Spanish flu, which again killed, am I mistaken, killed a third of the population on Earth.
It infected a third of the population, and it killed 10% of those people. So about the total death toll, they believe somewhere between 20 and 50 million people died from it, including about 675,000 Americans.
Yeah, and it was, there 500 million people were infected with this flu in 1918. And this is the pandemic that everybody has been worried about. Bird flu. What was its R-naught with bird flu?
I have swine flu here, which was the H1N1. Remember that thing? That was 1.5 on the scale.
1.5.
The influenza outbreak of 1918, Spanish flu, was 1.8 on the scale.
So far, now these are early numbers, and so these can change. But the R-naught of this is between 1.4, so it would put it in the Spanish flu territory, to as high as 3.8. That is devastating, if that is true.
Normal flu is about 1.2.
Right, and how many people get the flu every?
Yeah, you know people for sure. So I mean, if it is legitimately 3.8, it's a massive, massive problem. There's a lot of doubt on that. It's in some ways seen as your worst case scenario. Like, you have these like global warming estimates that have us all dying in 3 years, and a lot of times it may they may be right. Maybe it does warm, but it doesn't go to that worst case. This is seemingly the worst case scenario, but a scary one that we better start preparing for.
If I were the president's advisor today, I would be saying, please, Mr. President, free up the funds to make sure we're working on a vaccine, which we are. They think they might be 3 months away from a vaccine. But that's a long time.
And also, that doesn't mean that they have it for you. That means that they have it.
They have it.
Then they got to start figuring out how to produce it
and remember
reproduce
that
it. And
most of our medicines now are made in China. We don't make a lot of medicines here anymore because of all kinds of restrictions. So we don't make them. China makes most of our medicine. Now, this is the first thing that I worry about because I don't know. We're due for a pandemic, and I hope this isn't it. I pray this isn't it. But this is what it would look like at the beginning. And I'm not sure we're getting the truth out of the Chinese government, the communists in China. They now have, they say, 65 million people are quarantined. Yesterday, I think it was 57 million were quarantined. So this is going up. They're gobbling whole cities. Well, one of the cities that they gobbled was the steel mill or the steel industry. They're Pittsburgh, if you will. A lot of the world's steel comes from this city. Well, because they shut it down and fear of this pandemic is there, the bus system wasn't working. The subway system wasn't working. Nobody's out on the streets. They're all being told to stay inside. So the steel industry has closed its doors in China. Now, if this goes on for months, what does that mean for cars? What does that mean for homes, for buildings? Not just in China, but all around the world. They produce $4 billion worth of goods shipped to the U.S. every day. And not all of those inexpensive clothes or toys on Amazon. 92% of Apple smartphones and watches are made in China. And Apple is already talking about what do we do if we are closing down in China. 35% of automobile parts are made in China. China produces 65% of all microchips and over 70% of the world's supply of 4G and 5G antennas. The travel and shipping also being disrupted. American Airlines made a decision yesterday, to cancel all inbound flights into China except for Hong Kong. Chinese shipping giant Costco also announced expected delays due to curfews being set in Shanghai that prevent 24-hour dock activity. Stocks are holding up, but this could be a black swan sort of event. Manufacturing, logistics support for the global supply chain is on high alert. Apple is at risk. Amazon, Walmart. And if the viral outbreak and related economic disruption in China extends for weeks or months, disruptions to the global supply chains for those companies heavily reliant on cheap Chinese labor and shipping puts all of those groups at risk for real financial impact. This could be, if it is a pandemic, could be a game changer for the Trump administration in the election, because this could change all of the economic news overnight. The biggest risk on this, beyond the human toll that is possible, beyond the risk of the economy, the biggest risk, the biggest foe, the biggest problem that this could cause is communism. It is much more viral and dangerous than the coronavirus. We are seeing it in our own nation. And with an real economic hardship, and the way this press and the way the socialist and the national socialist and the people who have been biding their time waiting for a moment like this, that's when that shoe drops. And whoever is president if it gets bad and the economy falls apart, it's going to cause them, well, it'll put them in the position of FDR. What do you do? What do you do? We know what George Bush did. He violated the free market to save the free market. Hopefully none of this happens, but you should prepare just in case.